The echoing clack, clack, clack of Headmistress Albright across the polished terrazzo floor was the only sound Julian Vance registered amidst the sudden, nauseating silence that had fallen over the grand cafeteria of Blackwood Preparatory School. His daughter, Lena, a child of 12, stood frozen, her delicate wrist imprisoned in the iron grip of a woman whose face was contorted into a mask of pure, unadulterated contempt. "I'm sorry, Headmistress Albright." Lena's voice, usually bright and confident, was now a fragile whisper. I'm sorry." Albright's laugh was a venomous hiss, cutting through the cavernous room. "Sorry? You think sorry cuts it? These tables are for families who contribute, child. Families who pay real money, who uphold the traditions of Blackwood, not charity cases like you." With a sharp, violent tug, she yanked Lena from her seat. The flimsy lunch tray, laden with the meager contents of the day's diversity meal, flew from Lena's grasp, shattering on the floor. Food, a paltry portion of wilted salad and an overcooked protein, splattered across the pristine floor, some even staining the pristine white uniform Lena wore. A ripple of cruel laughter erupted from the plush central tables, punctuated by the illicit flash of smartphone cameras. Julian's blood ran cold. This wasn't the inclusive, progressive haven he'd been promised. This was a spectacle of public humiliation. "Please," Lena pleaded, her eyes wide with terror. "My father pays the same tuition." Albright scoffed, her grip tightening, her voice laced with derision. "Your father? Your daddy is probably some welfare leech who fabricated an application to sneak you in. Now get back to your designated corner with the rest of the equity admissions before I have you expelled. Your kind pollutes the atmosphere." She shoved Lena forward with such force that the girl stumbled, her small frame swaying precariously. Lena caught herself, head bowed, shoulders trembling, and shuffled toward the darkest, most neglected corner of the vast room. Julian, standing at the doorway, a brown paper bag dangling from his suddenly frozen fingers, watched. His mouth opened, but no sound escaped. He watched his daughter, his brilliant, beautiful Lena, retreat into the shadows, a silent, weeping testament to a nightmare he never knew existed. Had he truly been so blind? So consumed by his grand ambitions that he'd failed to see the quiet agony of the one child who mattered most? Just 6 hours earlier, Senator Julian Vance had sat cooned in his office in Capital City. His immense desk, a testament to decades of public service, groaned under the weight of budget reports, reform proposals, and investigation files. The polished brass nameplate on his door, simple yet authoritative, declared his position. Secretary of Educational Advancement, United States Department of Education. He was 3 months into this role, 3 months of grueling 14-hour days, 3 months battling to mend a fractured system from the very top. His phone buzzed, a gentle vibration against the dark mahogany. A reminder bloomed on the screen. Lena's birthday, 12 years old today. Julian leaned back in his sumptuous leather chair, the soft groan of the springs echoing the sudden ache in his chest. 12 years old. When had his little girl grown so fast? When was the last time they'd shared a relaxed breakfast, lingered over pancakes and laughter? Last week? 2 weeks ago? A pang of guilt, sharp and unwelcome, twisted in his gut. He scrolled through his recent messages. Lena's texts were always brief, always cheerful, always designed to reassure. "School's good, Dad. Don't worry about me. Focus on your work." Each message a carefully constructed shield, he now realized, protecting him from a truth too painful for a child to bear. His executive assistant, Ms. Albright, no relation to the headmistress, a fact he'd later find both ironic and chilling, a woman of impeccable efficiency, rapped softly on the doorframe. "Senator Vance, the conference call with Governor Thorne begins in 5 minutes." Julian's gaze remained fixed on his phone. Lena's smiling face looked back at him from his lock screen, a cherished photo from last year, her first day at Blackwood Preparatory School. She wore her new uniform, pristine and full of promise. Pride had radiated from her eyes, a mixture of excitement and burgeoning confidence. He'd chosen Blackwood with meticulous care. Widely considered the best private academy in the Commonwealth, its annual tuition of $60,000 seemed a small price to pay for the inclusive, progressive environment they so lavishly advertised. Their brochures, glossy and artfully designed, depicted a tableau of diverse students, all laughing, learning, and thriving together. Lena deserved that. Especially after her mother's passing 3 years prior, Lena deserved every good thing this complicated world could offer. "Cancel the call," Julian said abruptly, his voice a low rumble. Ms. Albright blinked, her practiced composure momentarily faltering. "Sir, cancel it?" "Reschedule for tomorrow. Early," he commanded, already rising, grabbing his tailored charcoal overcoat. "I'm going to see my daughter." The drive from Capital City to Blackwood Preparatory took just under 2 hours. The first 30 minutes were a blur of calls. Policy discussions, budget negotiations, the familiar, relentless chaos of his office. Then, with a decisive flick, he turned off his phone, rolled down the windows, and let the crisp spring air rush into the luxury sedan. He tried to clear his mind, to focus on Lena. He thought about her voice last night during their brief evening call. She'd sounded tired, distant. When he'd asked if everything was all right, she'd given her usual, reassuring, "Yes, Dad. Always yes." But something in her tone, a barely perceptible hesitation, a catch in her breath, had pricked at him. He'd dismissed it then, attributing it to the usual stresses of a demanding academic schedule, adjusting to a new environment. Now, that subtle hesitation gnawed at him, a premonition of unease. Julian pulled into a quaint delicatessen nestled near the school, a familiar comfort from a happier time. It was the same charming spot he and Lena, and her mother before her, had frequented, their special pre-weekend ritual. He ordered 2 sandwiches, turkey and Swiss, extra pickles. Lena's absolute favorite. The woman behind the counter, her face lined with kind wrinkles, smiled warmly. "Haven't seen you around in a while, Senator Vance?" "Work," Julian replied, the word feeling hollow and inadequate. "Too much work." "Well, she'll be happy to see you, wouldn't she?" the woman offered, her tone gentle. He felt a fresh wave of shame. He had been so absent lately, so utterly consumed by his mission to reform educational systems nationwide, so focused on uplifting millions of children he barely knew. In his noble pursuit of grand systemic change, he had neglected the one child who mattered most, the precious, vulnerable daughter who needed him to simply show up. Julian parked in the designated visitor lot at Blackwood Academy. The school's main building, a formidable structure of gray stone and soaring Gothic arches, rose before him like a monument to inherited wealth and unchallenged privilege. Manicured lawns, dotted with ancient oaks, stretched outwards, converging on a majestic fountain in the central courtyard where water danced in sparkling cascades. He strode towards the front office, presenting his identification, not his federal credentials, merely his driver's license. "Julian Vance, Lena's father," he stated, attempting to project the image of a regular, concerned parent. The secretary, her gaze glued to a glowing screen, barely glanced up. "Sign in here. Visitor badge. You know where the dining hall is?" she mumbled, her tone indifferent. "Yes, thank you," Julian replied, affixing the generic bright yellow visitor sticker badge to his coat. He walked the hallowed halls, marble floors cool beneath his expensive shoes, dark wood panels gleaming under soft, indirect lighting. Along the walls, photos of distinguished alumni, their faces overwhelmingly pale and stern, stared down from ornate frames. Century after century of enshrined privilege. He pushed the disquieting thought away. This was a good school. They had accepted Lena. They had promised opportunity, equality, excellence. The heavy oak doors of the dining hall appeared ahead. Sounds of laughter and conversation drifted through, a seemingly harmonious hum of normalcy. Normal. Happy. Safe. Julian allowed himself a small, hopeful smile. He would surprise Lena. They would eat lunch together. Perhaps he'd even pull her out early, spend the afternoon with her, try to make up for some of the lost time. He adjusted the paper bag in his hand, containing the 2 sandwiches, and pushed open the massive doors. And then, time seemed to fracture. The harmonious hum shattered into a cacophony of cruel laughter and whispered contempt. He watched, horrified, as his daughter's face crumpled. He saw the white-haired headmistress Albright grab Lena's arm with unnecessary force. He saw her stumble, witnessed the splash of milk on the polished floor, the tears already streaking down Lena's pale cheeks. And then, the words, sharp and cold, slicing through the air. Scholarship trash. Diversity quota. You people. The paper bag slipped from his fingers, hitting the ground with a soft, almost imperceptible thud. A sound swallowed by the louder, more significant crash of his daughter's dignity. No one else heard the bag fall, because everyone was watching Lena, watching her humiliation. Some students laughed openly. Some, worse, recorded the scene on their phones, their faces alight with ghoulish interest. Others simply stared, silent, complicit. Julian couldn't move. His limbs felt encased in lead. He couldn't speak, his throat constricted, his mind struggling to process the grotesque tableau unfolding before him. This was the school he had chosen, the school he had trusted, the school for which he paid $60,000 a year, believing it would keep his daughter safe, nurtured, and respected. Now he stood paralyzed, his brain battling to reconcile the glossy brochures and eloquent promises with the raw, brutal reality in front of his eyes. This couldn't be Blackwood Preparatory. This wasn't the institution lauded for its diversity awards, its glowing website testimonials, its parade of happy, integrated families. This couldn't be real. Lena, her small body trembling, slowly picked herself up from the floor. A dark, spreading stain of milk soaked into the front of her uniform. Headmistress Albright loomed over her, a formidable figure with arms crossed, her face a mask of cold disgust. "Clean that up now, child, and do it quickly." "Yes, Headmistress Albright," Lena murmured, her voice barely audible. She knelt, her hands shaking uncontrollably, and began to gather the shattered pieces of her lunch tray and the scattered remnants of food. Other students, heedless of her distress, walked past, stepping over her as if she were an inanimate obstacle. A few giggled. One particularly cruel girl, Tiffany Albright, the headmistress's granddaughter, casually kicked a piece of bread further away, extending Lena's ordeal. Julian's feet, heavy with a leaden inertia, moved forward instinctively, then stopped. "Wait, look, understand what's happening here." He stepped discreetly to the side, positioning himself behind a massive stone support column, his hand already reaching for his phone. He started recording. The small red light, a silent, burning accusation. The cafeteria's true layout began to reveal itself, slowly, insidiously, like a curtain being drawn back on a grim stage. In the center, expansive tables with plush, cushioned chairs bathed in the warm, inviting glow of natural light from tall, arched windows. Perhaps 40 students occupied this privileged space, their laughter bright, their meals substantial, their postures relaxed and confident. Every single one of them was white. Then, his gaze drifted to the far corner, tucked away near the kitchen entrance, adjacent to the industrial trash bins and the utilitarian loading dock door. Here, hard wooden benches lined stark, uninviting tables under the harsh, flickering buzz of fluorescent lights. 7 students, all black or Latino, sat with heads down, eating quickly, trying desperately to become invisible. An invisible wall, thick and unyielding, bisected the room. Not a physical barrier, but an absolute, undeniable division. Julian's chest tightened, a cold knot of dread forming in his stomach. How had he not known? How had he been so utterly blind? Lena finished her humiliating task, carrying her ruined lunch towards the shadowed corner section. As she approached, a group of white girls from the central table stood up, blocking her path. The one in front, Tiffany Albright, smirked. Julian recognized her from parent orientation, a pretty, privileged girl, now embodying her grandmother's malice. "Watch where you're going, scholarship girl." "Sorry," Lena whispered. You just need to remember your place," Tiffany interrupted, shoving Lena's shoulder roughly. "My grandmother runs this cafeteria. She says you people should eat outside with the garbage." A ripple of cruel laughter spread through the nearby tables. More phones appeared, recording, capturing every humiliating moment. This was entertainment. Lena kept her head down, moved past them, and sat alone at the very end of a desolate bench. Even the other students of color in the corner kept their distance, as if Lena's humiliation might be contagious. Julian's finger pressed harder on the record button, his knuckles white as his other hand gripped the cold stone of the column. A young teacher, a Latina woman in her mid-20s, walked past Lena. Her eyes lingered for a fraction of a second on Lena's tear-stained face, holding a flicker of something. Sympathy? Guilt? She quickly looked away, continuing her brisk stride. Another teacher, an older white man with distinguished gray hair, stood barely 10 feet from where Tiffany had shoved Lena. He had seen everything, done nothing. Now, he chatted animatedly with other teachers, laughing at some shared joke. The system wasn't broken here. It was working exactly as it was designed to. Headmistress Eleanor Albright emerged from the kitchen area, her posture radiating self-importance. She surveyed her domain with the imperious air of a general inspecting her troops. Her gaze swept across the central tables, her expression softening into a nod of satisfaction, then hardening as it landed on the marginalized corner. She marched over, her sensible, expensive shoes striking the floor with an authoritarian rhythm. "Lena Hayes!" Her voice, sharp and cutting, sliced through the remaining murmurs. Lena jumped, startled, her head snapping up. "Yes, ma'am?" "Did you attempt to sit at a premium table again?" Albright demanded, her eyes narrowed to slits. "I just thought maybe I could—" "You thought wrong." Albright grabbed Lena's chin, forcing the girl's gaze upwards. "How many times do I have to explain this? Those tables are reserved for families who contribute. Real families, not affirmative action cases. Not our diversity quotas. My father pays the same tuition as—" The sharp, resonant slap echoed through the cafeteria. It wasn't hard enough to leave a visible mark, but it was hard enough to sting, hard enough to shock, hard enough to establish an undeniable dominance. Conversations ceased. Students turned, drawn by the sudden, brutal violence. Albright leaned down, her face inches from Lena's, her voice a low, menacing growl. "Don't you dare talk back to me. Your kind gets in here through quotas, through pity. You want to sit at the good tables? Tell your daddy to donate a building. Until then, you eat where I tell you to eat." Lena's bottom lip trembled. She bit down on it, struggling desperately to suppress the fresh wave of tears, trying to cling to whatever fragments of dignity she had left. Julian's vision blurred, a crimson haze creeping in from the edges of his sight. His daughter, his baby girl, enduring such abuse from this monstrous woman. He started forward, his muscles coiling, then stopped himself again, a new, colder resolve hardening his jaw. No, get it all. Make sure there's no doubt, no way for them to deny it, no way for them to explain it away. A Latino boy, perhaps 13, hesitantly raised his hand at a nearby corner table. "Headmistress Albright, may I get more water?" Albright didn't even glance at him. "You had your chance during your designated refill time. Sit down." "But I'm really thirsty," the boy persisted, his voice small. "I have soccer practice after school." "I said, sit down." Albright's voice cracked like a whip. "You, diversity students, get one water refill. One. If you can't manage that, bring water from home." The boy's shoulders slumped. He lowered his hand, sat back down, utterly defeated. Julian watched, his phone still recording, as a white student casually rose from a central table, walked to the water fountain, filled his bottle, and returned. No one said a word to him. 2 minutes later, another white student did the same. Then another. The rules weren't rules at all. They were weapons, selectively applied, designed with chilling precision to remind certain students that they did not and would never belong. A black girl, perhaps 14, stood up with her empty tray, starting to walk towards the trash bins near the center tables, the shortest, most direct path. Albright materialized in front of her like a malevolent specter. "Where do you think you're going to throw away your trash, young lady? Not through here." "Ma'am, You're not. Scholarship students use the bins by the back door. But that's all the way." Did I stutter? Albright pointed imperiously towards the distant kitchen. "Back door, now before I write you up for insubordination." The girl turned, her face a mask of quiet resignation, and began the long, circuitous walk past the kitchen, past the loading dock, to deposit her trash in a bin that must have been 50 yards from where she'd started. Julian's phone timer now displayed 12 minutes of footage, 12 minutes of systematic, deliberate, and utterly cruel discrimination. And Lena, his resilient, brave Lena, endured this every single day. How long? How many months? She had started at Blackwood in September. It was now April. 7 months. 7 months of eating lunch in a forgotten corner. 7 months of being shoved, of being slapped, of being reminded she didn't belong. 7 months of coming home and cheerfully reporting, "School's good, Dad." 7 months of protecting him from the truth. His baby girl, his beautiful, brave baby girl, carrying this unbearable weight alone because she didn't want to burden him, didn't want to distract him from his important work. What kind of father was he? Albright returned to the center of the cafeteria, her stride imperious. She clapped her hands twice, a sharp, commanding sound that instantly silenced the room. "Attention, attention, everyone!" All eyes snapped to her. "I want to remind you all of the cafeteria standards at Blackwood Preparatory. This is an institution built on excellence, built by families who value quality, who value tradition." She gestured grandly towards the central tables. "These families have contributed millions to make this school great. They deserve premium treatment." She then turned, her finger pointing directly at the corner, at Lena, at the other marginalized students. "And these students, they're here because the government forces us to hit diversity numbers, because we have to check boxes to keep our funding. But make no mistake, there is a hierarchy here. There is an order, and everyone needs to respect it." A few parents, occupying tables designated for volunteer appreciation, nodded in vigorous agreement. One woman, her face pinched with self-righteousness, even clapped politely. Albright's eyes landed on Lena again, a malevolent glint within them. Some people don't understand their place. Some people think they can just sit anywhere, do anything, act like they're equal to students whose families actually built this place. She walked over, stopping directly above Lena, her shadow falling over the bowed head. "But they're not equal, are they, Lena?" Lena stared at her lap, silent, unmoving. "I asked you a question. Are you equal to the real Blackwood students?" "No, ma'am." The words came out broken, barely audible, choked with humiliation. "Louder," Albright commanded, her voice ringing with sadistic pleasure, "so everyone can hear." "No, ma'am." Lena's voice cracked, tears dripping onto her uniform skirt, creating dark, wet spots. "That's right, you're not, and you never will be." Albright straightened up, a thin, satisfied smile gracing her lips, pleased with her lesson delivered. She turned and walked back towards the kitchen, her mission of degradation complete. Julian's hands shook uncontrollably. The phone, still recording, nearly slipped from his grasp. 17 minutes of footage now. 17 minutes of his daughter being systematically destroyed, piece by agonizing piece. Enough. Enough evidence. Enough observation. Enough restraint. He stepped out from behind the column, placing the phone into his jacket pocket, ensuring the audio continued to capture everything. He walked across the cafeteria. His footsteps, though measured, seemed impossibly loud in the suddenly hushed room. Students turned. Conversations faltered, then died. Something in his expression, a primal, controlled fury, made people nervous. He reached Lena's table, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. She looked up, her tear-filled eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and dawning recognition. "Dad?" Her face transformed, relief crashing headlong into terror. Relief that he was there. Terror of what his presence might signify. "Hi, baby." Julian's voice remained impossibly calm, perfectly controlled. "I brought you lunch." Albright, now noticing him, turned and began to stride back over, her earlier triumph morphing into an expression of annoyance. "And who are you?" Julian looked at her. Truly, looked at her. Memorized every cruel line of her face. This woman, this architect of his daughter's misery, this woman was about to learn what justice truly felt like. "I'm Lena's father, and we need to talk about what you've been doing to my daughter." Albright's eyes narrowed. She subjected Julian to a swift, dismissive glance, appraising his expensive but understated suit, his quiet demeanor. "Your daughter has been repeatedly violating cafeteria protocols. She refuses to follow simple instructions about seating arrangements." "Seating arrangements?" Julian's voice remained level, dangerously so. "You mean segregation?" A collective gasp rippled through the nearby tables. The word hung in the air, heavy and noxious, like smoke from a dying fire. Albright's face flushed an angry red. "How dare you! This is about maintaining order, about respecting the families who fund this institution. Your daughter sits where scholarship students sit. That's policy." "My daughter isn't on scholarship," Julian stated, his gaze unblinking. "I pay full tuition, $6,000 a year." Albright scoffed, her arms crossing defensively. "I've reviewed every file in this cafeteria. Lena Hayes, diversity admission. Accepted through the Equity Initiative, which means scholarship, which means she follows scholarship rules." "Diversity admission doesn't mean scholarship," Julian corrected, his voice a low, insistent hum. "She earned her spot, and I pay full freight." Albright laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. "Sure you do. And I'm supposed to believe a man who shows up in a cheap, off-the-rack suit and drives a 10-year-old sedan pays 60 grand? Please." Lena tugged desperately on Julian's sleeve, her eyes pleading. "Dad, let's just go, please." He squeezed her small hand, a silent promise. "Not yet, baby." Albright stepped closer, invading Julian's personal space. "Listen to me very carefully. I don't know what story you told admissions. I don't care. But in my cafeteria, there are rules. Premium donors get premium treatment. Your kind gets what's left over. Don't like it? There's the door." "My kind?" Julian's jaw tightened, a muscle clenching visibly. "Oh, don't start with the race card." Albright rolled her eyes dismissively. "I'm talking about income, about contribution, about people who actually matter to this school's success versus people who are here to make us look diverse in the brochures. People who are a drain on our resources." Just then, a white man in a meticulously tailored suit approached. Late 50s, with impeccably groomed gray hair, he was Headmaster Alistair Finch. Julian recognized him instantly from orientation. "Is there a problem here, Headmistress Albright?" "This man is disrupting lunch service, harassing staff, making baseless accusations," Albright rattled off, her voice laced with manufactured outrage. Finch turned to Julian, his expression severe. He didn't ask for Julian's side. He didn't ask what had happened. He merely frowned. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave campus." "I'm asking why my daughter is being segregated and abused," Julian stated, his voice ringing with quiet authority. "Segregated?" Finch's voice dripped with condescension, a practiced dismissal. "That's a serious allegation. Do you have any evidence to support such a claim?" Julian patted his jacket pocket, where his phone continued its silent, incriminating work. "Yes, I do." "Then let me see it," Finch demanded, a flicker of irritation in his eyes. "No, not yet." Finch's expression hardened, his professional facade cracking. "Then I'm afraid you need to leave now, before I have security remove you." "I have a right to know why my daughter is being mistreated," Julian insisted, unyielding. "Your daughter isn't being mistreated," Finch declared, gesturing vaguely around the cafeteria. "She's eating lunch in a safe, clean environment. If you have complaints about seating arrangements, You can schedule a formal meeting with my office, but you will not storm in here during lunch service and cause a scene." Albright stepped forward again, emboldened by Finch's support, her eyes glinting with malicious satisfaction. "Do you know how many calls I get from parents complaining about diversity students, headmaster? Dozens. They pay premium prices and don't want their children sitting next to charity cases. We have to balance everyone's needs." She glared at Julian. Making 12-year-olds eat next to garbage bins is a necessary compromise for the greater good of this institution. That corner has the same food, the same tables, the same access to education as everywhere else. If your daughter feels excluded, that's a personal problem, not a school problem. Lena started crying harder, her shoulders shaking uncontrollably. Other students stared, some still recording on their phones. This was content, drama, entertainment. Julian knelt beside his daughter, his voice a balm. "Baby, look at me. We're going to fix this." "Dad, please," Lena sobbed, her words muffled. "I just want to go home." Albright's voice cut through the air, sharp and unyielding. "Actually, she's not going anywhere. It's school hours. Students can't leave without proper authorization." Julian stood, his gaze locking onto Albright's. "I'm her father. I'm taking her home. Not without filling out an early dismissal form. Not without approval from the administration." Albright retorted, already pulling out her phone. "In fact, given your hostile behavior, I'm calling security." "Hostile behavior?" Julian's voice, for the first time, rose in volume, betraying the raw anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. "I asked questions about discrimination. You're aggressive, confrontational, your body language is threatening," Albright declared, speaking into her phone. "Security to the cafeteria. We have a potentially dangerous situation." "Dangerous?" Julian repeated, his voice incredulous. "I'm standing here talking." Finch held up a placating hand. "Sir, you need to calm down. Your escalating tone is exactly what we're concerned about." "My escalating tone?" Julian's voice, though still controlled, vibrated with barely contained fury. "Your staff is segregating children, and you're worried about my tone?" Two security guards, both burly men in dark uniforms, materialized at the cafeteria entrance. They moved with purpose, positioning themselves on either side of Julian. "Mr. Vance," Finch's voice went cold, professional, practiced. "I'm going to ask you one more time to leave voluntarily. If you refuse, these gentlemen will escort you out, and we will file a no trespass order." "A no trespass order for asking why my daughter is being discriminated against?" Julian demanded, incredulous. "For causing a disturbance, for refusing to follow school protocols, for creating an unsafe environment," Albright interjected, her eyes glinting with vindictive triumph. "And given your aggressive behavior, we'll need to review Lena's enrollment. We can't have parents who threaten staff, who create hostile situations. That violates our code of conduct." Lena, her face etched with terror, grabbed Julian's arm. "Dad, no, please, they'll expel me, please, just go. I'll be okay." "You won't be okay," Julian whispered, his heart shattering. "This isn't okay. I'll deal with it. I have been dealing with it. Please don't make it worse," Lena pleaded, her voice choked with desperation. Julian's heart utterly shattered. His daughter was begging him to leave her in this nightmare, to walk away, to let the abuse continue, because she was more afraid of being expelled than she was of being tormented. Finch nodded subtly to the security guards. "Gentlemen, please escort Mr. Vance off campus." The guards moved in, grabbing Julian's arms, not gently, but with a bruising, authoritative force. "Get your hands off me," Julian demanded, a flash of his true power momentarily breaking through. "Don't resist, sir," one of the guards said blandly. "This will be easier if you cooperate." Albright stood back, arms crossed, a smug, triumphant smile spreading across her face. "You should have known your place, should have taught your daughter to know hers. But no, you people always think rules don't apply to you. You people." Julian stopped struggling, letting the words hang in the air, cold and heavy. "Say that again." Slowly. Albright's smile widened, oozing contempt. "You people. The ones who get in through quotas, through forced diversity. The ones who don't contribute, who don't belong, who dragged down our standards just by being here. The guards pulled Julian backward, dragging him towards the exit. Students watched, some still laughing, some recording. Tiffany Albright, surrounded by her friends, held her phone aloft, a cruel grin on her face. "This is going straight to TikTok. Scholarship Dad gets owned." Finch walked beside the guards, his voice chillingly formal. "Mr. Vance, you are now banned from this campus. Any further attempts to enter will result in immediate arrest for criminal trespass. Additionally, we will be reviewing Lena's enrollment status. Given her family's inability to respect school authority, we may determine this isn't the right fit for her." Julian's feet dragged. The guards pulled harder. Lena followed, crying, her small voice desperate. "Please don't expel me. Please, this is the only good school. If I get expelled, my record—" Albright called after them, her voice dripping with venom. "Maybe you should have thought about that before your father came in here acting like a thug. Actions have consequences, sweetheart. You're about to learn that lesson." They reached the grand cafeteria exit. The guards shoved Julian through. Not hard enough to make him fall, but hard enough to emphasize his humiliation, his powerlessness. Other parents, still lingering at their volunteer tables, watched. Some looked uncomfortable, a fleeting flicker of unease in their eyes. Most, however, looked satisfied. Order restored. Troublemaker removed. Problem solved. Finch stood in the doorway, blocking Lena from following. "Miss Hayes, return to your seat. Finish your lunch. We'll discuss your behavioral issues later." "But my dad—" Lena's voice was a desperate plea. "Your father is no longer your concern right now," Finch stated coldly. "School policy is your concern. Now go sit down before I add insubordination to the list of problems we're documenting." Lena looked at Julian, her eyes pleading for help, for rescue, for anything. He couldn't give it to her, not yet. "Lena, listen to me. Go back inside. Sit down. Keep your head up. Everything is about to change. I promise you." "How?" she cried, despair lacing her voice. "They're kicking you out. They're going to expel me." "Trust me, baby. One more hour. Just hold on for one more hour." Finch pulled Lena back inside, the heavy oak doors slamming shut with a resounding thud. The lock clicked, a final chilling sound. Julian stood in the sprawling parking lot. The guards flanked him until he reached his car. "You heard the headmaster. You're not welcome here. Don't come back." Julian opened his car door, slid into the driver's seat, and pulled out his phone. The recording light was still a steady red. 28 minutes of footage, clear audio, undeniable evidence. He scrolled through his contacts, his fingers moving with a cold, precise efficiency. His first call, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Civil Rights Division. "This is Secretary Julian Vance," he stated, his voice now devoid of any emotion, a steel-hard instrument of retribution. "I need to activate an emergency federal investigation. I have irrefutable documentation of systematic civil rights violations at a federally funded institution. I need a team at Blackwood Preparatory School in 30 minutes. Sir, can you verify your identity?" The agent on the other end asked, a hint of skepticism in his voice. Julian recited his federal ID number, his authorization code, his direct line to the director of the FBI. "Verified, Mr. Secretary," the agent responded, his tone now sharp with urgency. "Dispatching team now. What's the nature of the violations?" "Racial segregation, systematic discrimination against minor children, hostile environment, federal fund misappropriation, and assault on a federal official." "Sir," the agent's voice tightened, "did you say assault on a federal official?" "Yes. They put their hands on me, forcibly removed me, all captured on video. I want federal charges filed within the hour." "Understood, sir. Team is mobilizing." Julian made his second call, the Department of Justice. His third call, the Deputy Secretary of Educational Advancement. His fourth call, White House counsel. His fifth call, the media. Then he started his car, drove exactly 1 block, parked where he could clearly see the school entrance, and waited. Inside Blackwood, Headmistress Albright returned to the cafeteria, radiant with triumph. She clapped her hands twice, a sharp celebratory sound. "Attention! Attention, everyone!" Students looked up. Teachers turned. I want you all to witness what happens when people don't respect authority, when they don't know their place." She pointed dramatically towards Lena's corner. "That girl's father just got permanently banned from this campus, and her enrollment is under review. Let this be a lesson. Blackwood has standards. We don't tolerate troublemakers." Scattered applause erupted from the central tables. Tiffany Albright let out a shrill whoop. "Bye-bye, scholarship girl!" Lena sat frozen, tears streaming silently down her face, her spirit utterly broken. Albright walked over, leaned down, her voice a cruel whisper. "Your father should have taught you better, should have taught you to be grateful for what you have. Now you'll probably lose it all. Such a shame." Headmaster Finch entered, joining Albright. They spoke in low, conspiratorial tones, both smiling. Crisis averted. Order maintained. Finch pulled out his phone, already typing. "I'm drafting the expulsion letter now. Will cite parental misconduct, hostile family environment, threat to campus safety." "Make sure it's airtight," Albright instructed, her eyes gleaming. "I don't want any appeals. I want her gone by Monday." "Done. I'll have legal review it this afternoon." They exchanged a high five, a chilling gesture of two adults celebrating the destruction of a child's future. Outside, a sound began to grow. Distant at first, a faint thrumming, then louder, a rhythmic, powerful whump, whump, whump. Students rushed to the tall windows, their faces pressed against the glass, pointing skyward. A sleek, black, unmarked helicopter descended rapidly towards the athletic field, its rotors churning the air. Then came another sound. Sirens. Multiple vehicles. The parking lot, moments ago so orderly, filled with black SUVs, dark sedans, lights flashing a dazzling array of red and blue. Albright frowned, walked to the window, her brow furrowed in confusion. What on earth? Cars screeched to abrupt stops. Doors flew open. Men and women in dark, impeccably tailored suits emerged, dozens of them, moving with disciplined precision. White letters emblazoned on their backs, FBI, DOJ. Is this some kind of drill? Finch's face went pale, his composure crumbling. More vehicles arrived, now joined by local news vans, their satellite dishes unfolding like predatory flowers, cameras already being set up on the manicured lawn. The cafeteria doors burst open. 15 federal agents, clad in tactical vests, their weapons holstered but visibly present, stormed the room. They moved with military precision, positioning themselves at every exit. An agent at the front, a stern-faced woman with an air of absolute authority, held up her credentials. FBI, everyone remain calm. Stay seated. This is an official federal investigation. Albright's mouth fell open, a gasp escaping her lips. Investigation of what? Who called you? Ma'am, we'll explain shortly, the agent stated, her voice clipped and professional. Right now, we need Headmaster Finch and Headmistress Albright to come with us. Finch stepped forward, a tremor in his voice. I'm Headmaster Finch. There must be some mistake. We're a private educational institution. We haven't... No mistake, sir, the agent interrupted, her tone brooking no argument. Please come with us to your office now. The agents weren't asking, they were commanding. Albright and Finch exchanged nervous glances, confusion battling with a lingering sense of their own authority. They began to walk towards the main office, agents surrounding them, flanking them like suspects. The office door, usually a bastion of quiet power, opened. More agents were already inside, having secured the space. Computers, files, everything was under federal control. And sitting casually in Finch's imposing leather chair, calm as a Sunday morning, was Julian Vance. Albright's eyes went wide, a chilling realization dawning. You? Sit down, Headmistress Albright, Julian said, his voice quiet but resonant with undeniable power. I will not. Security! Get this man out of my... An agent stepped forward, his hand resting on his holstered weapon. Ma'am, sit down. The command in his voice left no room for argument. Albright, her legs suddenly weak, collapsed into the chair. Finch, his face ashen, stumbled into the other chair opposite Julian. His hands shook visibly. Julian stood, reached into his jacket and pulled out a sleek, black leather credential case. He placed it on the desk, flipping it open. The federal seal gleamed under the fluorescent lights. United States Department of Educational Advancement, Office of the Secretary, Julian Vance. The words hit Albright like bullets. The last vestiges of color drained from her face, leaving it pasty white, then a sickly gray. She gripped the armrest of her chair, her knuckles bloodless. "Secretary? You're the Secretary of Educational Advancement?" "Yes," Julian confirmed, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "The person who controls every federal dollar that flows into this institution." Finch made a choking sound. His eyes rolled back into his head, and he slumped forward, his face hitting the desk with a soft thud. An agent caught him before he slid to the floor. "Someone get him water," the lead FBI agent ordered. "And a medic if he doesn't come around." Albright stared at the badge, at Julian, at the agents surrounding them. Her mouth moved, but no sound emerged. Julian pulled out his phone, connected it wirelessly to Finch's large monitor on the wall, which flickered to life. "I'm going to show you something I want you to watch very carefully," Julian stated. The video began to play, crystal clear, with perfect audio. Albright's voice, sharp and venomous, echoed through the office. "Lena Hayes, get back to the scholarship section." Her grabbing Lena's arm, the slap, the shove. "Your kind gets in here through quotas, through pity." Every word, every action, 28 minutes of undeniable footage. Albright shook her head frantically. That's not... I didn't mean... It's out of context." "Out of context?" Julian's voice remained eerily calm, colder than a winter storm. "Which part? The part where you hit my daughter? The part where you called us you people? The part where you threatened to destroy her future?" Finch groaned, stirring. He looked up, saw the video playing, saw himself standing there, doing nothing, then ordering Julian's removal. "Oh God," he mumbled. "Oh my God. Let me tell you what's happening right now," Julian said, his gaze fixed on Albright. "As we speak, your federal funding is being frozen. $12 million gone." Albright gasped, a choked sound of pure horror. "You can't!" "I can," Julian stated, a grim satisfaction in his voice. "And I did, 30 minutes ago." He turned to the FBI agent. "Agent Sterling, please read them their rights." "Wait!" Albright shot to her feet, her terror overriding all protocol. An agent gently, but firmly, pushed her back down. "Wait! Please! I didn't know who you were. If I'd known..." "If you'd known, you would have what?" Julian interrupted, leaning forward, his voice a legal whisper. "Treated my daughter like a human being? Only treated her with dignity because her father has power?" He leaned back, a bitter smile touching his lips. "That's exactly the problem, Headmistress Albright." Agent Sterling stepped forward, her voice clear and precise. "Eleanor Albright, Alastair Finch, you are both under arrest for violation of federal civil rights law, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Albright's face crumpled. Real tears started now, not righteous anger, but pure, unadulterated terror. "Please, please, I have grandchildren here. I've worked here for 30 years. I'll lose my pension, my reputation, everything." Julian thought of Lena's face, her silent tears, her begging him to leave so she wouldn't be expelled. "You should have thought about that before you hurt children." Agent Sterling pulled out her handcuffs. The cold metal clicked around Albright's wrists, then Finch's. No, please. Not in front of everyone, please." But the agents led them out, through the main office, into the hallway where students and teachers watched through the windows, past the cafeteria where Lena still sat, frozen, still not fully comprehending, out the front doors where cameras waited, where the world was watching. Eleanor Albright, handcuffed, crying, utterly destroyed, exactly as she deserved. The FBI vehicle pulled away, its siren wailing faintly in the distance. Albright and Finch sat in the back seat, handcuffed, their faces contorted in despair. Cameras captured everything. Students pressed against the windows, phones still recording. The video would be viral within the hour. Julian stood on the front steps. Deputy Secretary Maria Santos, his trusted second-in-command, arrived in a black sedan. She'd driven from Capital City the moment he called. "Mr. Secretary, the building is secure. Federal oversight is active. Convene emergency assembly," Julian ordered, his voice crisp. "Everyone, 15 minutes, inside the cafeteria." Chaos erupted. Teachers couldn't control the students. Questions flew, accusations, mounting panic. Lena still sat frozen in her corner. A young Latina teacher, the same one who'd glanced at Lena earlier, now knelt beside her. "Miss Rodriguez? Honey, is that man really your father? The Secretary of Educational Advancement?" Lena nodded, unable to speak, a silent river of tears tracing paths down her cheeks. "Oh God," Miss Rodriguez whispered, her face etched with shame and regret. "I should have helped you. I'm so sorry." Other students instinctively backed away from Lena's table. The girl they'd mocked, the girl they'd humiliated, now held power, real power, federal power. Tiffany Albright frantically texted her grandmother. No response. She called, but it went straight to voicemail. Her hands shook. Her friends whispered, "Your grandma got arrested? We're screwed. Delete your videos." Too late. The FBI had already subpoenaed the school's servers. Every post, every video, every text, all evidence. Now, the PA system crackled to life. Headmaster Finch's voice, surprisingly steady, announcing, "All students and staff report to the gymnasium immediately. Mandatory assembly." The gym filled within minutes. 450 students, 60 staff members, all whispering nervously. Federal agents lined the walls, silent, professional, intimidating. Julian entered, Deputy Secretary Santos by his side. 3 more FBI agents followed. An expectant, heavy silence descended. Julian walked to center court, his presence commanding. No microphone was needed. His voice, though not raised, carried to every corner of the vast room. "My name is Julian Vance, United States Secretary of Educational Advancement, and Lena Hayes' father." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "This morning, I came to bring my daughter lunch. Instead, I witnessed federal crimes, civil rights violations, child abuse." He connected his phone to the gymnasium's massive projection system. The video filled the screen, larger than life. Albright's venomous voice boomed, "Scholarship trash doesn't sit at premium tables." The slap, the shove, the utter cruelty. 28 minutes of raw, undeniable truth. Students watched themselves, their teachers, their administrators, the systemic injustice they had normalized. Some cried openly. Some looked away in shame. A few, utterly overwhelmed, vomited into nearby trash cans. The video ended. The silence that followed was absolute, crushing. Eleanor Albright and Alastair Finch are now in federal custody. They face 5 to 10 years in prison for civil rights violations, Julian stated, his voice resonating with cold authority. A girl in the front row collapsed, her friends catching her. Every staff member who witnessed this discrimination and remained silent will be interviewed by the FBI. Every student who participated faces disciplinary action. Every parent who supported this faces questions. Julian's eyes swept across the stunned crowd. This school received $12 million in federal funding last year, money that came with legal requirements, equal treatment, equal access, equal dignity. He paused, letting the words sink in. You violated every single requirement. Your funding is frozen. If we find misappropriation, administrators face fraud charges. If we confirm systematic discrimination, you lose accreditation. This school could close permanently. Teachers sobbed, their careers ending, their reputations destroyed in an instant. But first, Julian continued, right now, today. He pointed to Lena, who still stood with the other marginalized students. Every student who was segregated and abused will receive a public apology. Deputy Secretary Santos stepped forward. Students of color who experience discrimination, please come to center court. 14 students, hesitant at first, Then, gaining courage, moved forward slowly. Years of being told to stay back, to be invisible, made this moment surreal. Lena walked with them, her head still down, but her steps gaining a subtle strength. All ages, all carrying the same profound pain. Julian addressed the assembled school, his voice imbued with a quiet, devastating power. Look at them. These children came here to learn, to grow. You destroyed them daily, systematically. He knelt before Lena, his voice thick with emotion. Baby, I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't know. Sorry I didn't see. Sorry I failed to protect you. Lena, finally releasing months of pent-up pain, collapsed into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I've got you now, Julian murmured, holding her tight. Nobody hurt you again. The gymnasium erupted. Not with applause, but with a cacophony of crying, cries of guilt, of realization, of raw, belated empathy. Julian stood, holding his daughter, and addressed the school once more. Starting today, everything changes. A new administration takes over tomorrow. Federal monitors will be present daily. Every policy will be reviewed. Every practice examined. He looked at the staff. Those of you who stayed silent, who looked away, who enabled this, you have one chance. Cooperate fully with investigators. Tell the truth. Help us understand how this happened, or face charges as accessories. He looked at the students. Those who participated in harassment, you'll complete mandatory counseling, community service, write formal apologies. Your college applications will include documentation of this incident and your remediation. Finally, he looked at the 14 students standing beside Lena, now a small, resilient group. And these young people, they'll receive full scholarships, counseling support, academic assistance. Everything this school should have provided from day one. He turned to leave, then stopped, looking back. One more thing. The cafeteria segregation ends today, permanently. Anyone who attempts to enforce it answers to the FBI. Julian took Lena's hand, leading her out of the gymnasium, past silent students, past crying teachers, past the broken system that had tried to crush her, out into the bright sunlight, into freedom, into justice. The FBI investigation exploded within 48 hours. Agents interviewed 217 people, students, parents, former employees. The stories poured out like a broken dam. Deputy Secretary Maria Santos sat in FBI headquarters, files covering every surface of her desk. An agent dropped yet another thick folder onto the towering stack. Former student, graduated 5 years ago, same abuse, same Eleanor Albright. Maria read the transcript, her stomach churning. How far back does this go? 12 years, maybe longer, the agent replied grimly. 12 years of children traumatized. 12 years of systematic cruelty. The Department of Justice assigned lead prosecutor Sandra Chen, a formidable attorney who had handled civil rights cases for 20 years. I've never seen evidence this clear, she mused, flipping through the documents. They documented their own crimes. Sandra held up a journal. Albright's personal discipline log. Listen to this, she read aloud. Removed 3 diversity students from premium seating today. They need constant reminders of their place. If we don't maintain standards, these people will think they belong everywhere. Her team sat stunned. She wrote it down, dated it, signed it. Internal emails surfaced during discovery. Finch to Albright. Board asking questions about diversity funding. Keep scholarship students visible in photos, but separated in practice. Donors complaining about too much mixing. Albright's response. Understood. Good families shouldn't tolerate integration during lunch. That's what they pay for. A meticulous financial audit revealed massive fraud. Blackwood claimed 52 diversity students for federal funding. The actual number? 15. Where did the $9.4 million go? Julian demanded. Administrator bonuses. Lavish facility upgrades for donor wings. nothing for the students it was meant to serve. New charges were filed: wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud the United States, false statements to federal agencies. Bail was set at $500,000 each. Neither Albright nor Finch could meet it. They were remanded to federal detention. Albright's first lawyer quit after 2 weeks. "I can't defend this." She literally wrote down her crimes. The second lawyer lasted a month. Every day, another victim comes forward. "We're drowning." The trial began 6 months later in the austere federal courthouse. Media omnipresent. National attention fixed. 17 families joined as plaintiffs, seeking not just damages, but justice, acknowledgement, and closure. The first witness, Lena Hayes. She walked to the stand, 13 now, taller, stronger, but still carrying the invisible weight of her ordeal. Prosecutor Sandra Chen approached gently. "Lena, tell the jury about your first day at Blackwood." Lena described the initial excitement, the new uniform, the soaring hope, then lunch. Albright's grip, being shoved to the corner, being called scholarship trash. "I didn't tell my dad," Lena testified, her voice trembling but clear, "because I thought it was my fault. I thought if I worked harder, was quieter, smaller, maybe they'd let me sit with everyone else." "Did that work?" Chen asked softly. "No," Lena replied, tears streaming down her face. "It got worse. Headmistress Albright made examples of us, called us out publicly, reminded everyone we didn't belong. The worst part wasn't the words. It was watching teachers do nothing, watching parents agree, realizing the whole system was built to hurt us." Albright stared at her lap, refusing to look up. Lena testified for 3 hours. The jury, many openly weeping, listened in stunned silence. Next witness, Miguel Rodriguez, 15, Latino. "Headmistress Albright wouldn't let me use the bathroom during lunch. Said diversity students had designated times. I had to wait 90 minutes. I wet myself. She made me clean it up while everyone watched." He broke down, sobbing. "I transferred schools. I still have nightmares." 14 students testified, all with similar stories, all traumatized, all scared. Former teacher Ashley Davies, a white woman in her mid-30s, testified. She had quit 3 years ago. "I tried to stop it once." Headmistress Albright went to Headmaster Finch. "He told me if I wanted to keep my job, I'd remember who paid my salary. The diversity students weren't those people." "What did you do?" Chen asked. "I quit?" Davies replied, her voice filled with regret. "I've regretted my silence every day since." Julian testified as an expert witness, explaining the devastating impact of segregation on developing brains, the psychological harm, the long-term consequences. These children internalize that they're inferior, unworthy, that their very existence is a burden. It affects academic performance, mental health, their entire sense of self. He looked directly at the jury, his voice cracking with emotion. "My daughter told me she wished she could disappear, stop existing, because existing meant taking up space she didn't deserve. That's what Blackwood did to her." The defense called no witnesses. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, damning. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, returning with a unanimous verdict, guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. Eleanor Albright stood before Judge Anya Martinez, a black woman who had grown up poor, who had fought through a system designed to stop her. "Headmistress Albright," Judge Martinez began, her voice resonating with authority. "You targeted vulnerable children who trusted institutions protect them. You weaponized your position to inflict maximum psychological harm." She paused, letting the words settle, letting their weight be felt. 5 years in federal prison, no early release, a lifetime ban from working with children, $1.2 million in restitution. Albright collapsed, guards catching her before she hit the floor. Finch received 3 years, $800,000 in restitution, and a lifetime educational ban. 3 other administrators received probation, their careers over, reputations destroyed. The civil case settled, resulting in $22 million from insurance and $8 million from Blackwood's liquidated assets. But money wasn't the victory. Transformation was. Blackwood fired its entire administration. The board, shamed and shaken, hired Dr. Gabrielle Vance, a brilliant black woman with 25 years of experience fighting for educational equity. Within 1 year, Blackwood's student body was 40% students of color, not just tokenism, but real diversity, real integration, real change. The cafeteria was renovated, all premium seating removed. The large central community space was renamed the Lena Hayes Justice Hall. The Capital City Times, in an impassioned editorial, declared, "The era of Blackwood's bitter harvest is over. A new seed of justice has been sown." Congress, 8 months later, passed the Educational Equity and Transparency Act. Journalists across the nation dubbed it Lena's Law. It required all private schools receiving federal funds to report detailed demographic data, seating arrangements, discipline rates, resource allocation. Everything became transparent, monitored. Violations meant immediate funding loss, federal investigation, and criminal prosecution. Within 2 years, 47 schools self-reported violations. 12 lost accreditation. 3 closed permanently. The Department of Educational Advancement created a national hotline. Students reported discrimination anonymously. Trained counselors responded. Federal investigators followed up. In the first year alone, 3,000 reports flooded in. The problem was far larger than anyone had imagined. Netflix produced a powerful documentary, Lunchroom Justice: The Blackwood Case, which won an Emmy and became required viewing in education programs nationwide. Footage of Albright's arrest played on a loop. Her words, her actions, her collapse. A cautionary tale in high definition. Lena appeared at the end, 14 now, her confidence radiant. "What happened to me happens to thousands of kids every day," she stated, her voice clear and strong. "My dad had the power to fight back. Most families don't. That's why Lena's Law matters. It gives everyone that power." The documentary ended with a powerful call to action. A website, a movement. Students across America shared their stories. The silence was breaking. Finally, completely, permanently, Eleanor Albright became exactly what she feared most. Not a symbol of standards and excellence, but a symbol of shame, of hatred, of everything wrong with institutions that claim inclusion while practicing exclusion. Her name would live forever, but not in the way she wanted, as a warning, as a lesson, as proof that justice, though sometimes slow, eventually comes for those who hurt children. 3 years later, Lena Hayes stood at the podium in Blackwood Preparatory's newly renovated auditorium. Not the scared 12-year-old who ate lunch in corners, but a confident 15-year-old who had changed the world. Valedictorian, perfect GPA, Harvard early admission with a full scholarship. She looked out at the audience, students, parents, media, her father in the front row. "3 years ago, I wanted to disappear," she began, her voice carrying strong, clear, without a trace of hesitation. "I thought if I could just be smaller, quieter, invisible, maybe the pain would stop." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the hushed crowd. "My father came to bring me lunch. Just lunch. A simple surprise. Instead, he discovered I was living in hell, and he had a choice. He could have taken me home, transferred me somewhere else, made the problem go away quietly." She paused again, a powerful silence. But he didn't. He chose justice. Not just for me, but for every child suffering in silence. The audience erupted in thunderous applause. Lena waited for silence to return. Eleanor Albright is in prison. Headmaster Finch is banned from education forever. The system that protected them is dismantled. Lena's Law is changing schools across America. She looked directly at the cameras, her eyes blazing with conviction. But the work isn't finished. 3,000 kids reported discrimination in the first year after Lena's Law passed. 3,000. That's 3,000 families who needed my father's power to fight back. who needed federal law to protect their children. Her voice rose, ringing with passion. Discrimination thrives in silence. It dies when we speak, when we document, when we refuse to accept that cruelty is normal. Lena stepped back from the podium. Julian joined her on stage. They stood together, father and daughter, an unstoppable force. Julian took the microphone. I came to bring my daughter sandwiches, turkey and Swiss, extra pickles. I left with evidence that destroyed careers, that changed laws, that transformed an institution. His voice softened, a raw vulnerability creeping in. But I failed too. 7 months. Lena suffered for 7 months before I knew, before I saw. That failure haunts me. He looked at the parents in the audience. How well do you know your child's daily reality? Not what they tell you, what they actually experience. The humiliations they hide, the pain they carry, the dignity they sacrifice to protect you from worry. A heavy, uncomfortable, undeniable silence settled over the room. Go to their school unannounced. Eat lunch with them. Watch how adults treat them. Watch how other students treat them. Don't trust brochures. Don't trust promises. Trust your eyes. Julian held up his phone. This device recorded 28 minutes that changed everything. 28 minutes of evidence. That's all justice needed. He pointed at the audience, his voice filled with urgency. You have that power too. Document, record, report. The national hotline is 1-800-LENA-LAW. Anonymous, confidential, action guaranteed. Lena returned to the microphone, her smile genuine, radiant. Blackwood is different now. Dr. Vance transformed this place. The cafeteria that broke me is now named for me. The corner where I cried is gone. Everyone sits together. Everyone belongs. She beamed. I love this school now. That's the proof. The girl who wanted to disappear now stands here proud. Her gaze swept the room. That's what real change looks like. The auditorium rose as one. Applause thundered. Phones recorded. This moment would go viral. Already was going viral. Julian and Lena walked off stage together. Past the spot where Albright once stood. Past the office where Finch made his dismissive calls. Past the cafeteria entrance where everything had changed. Outside, news crews waited. A sea of microphones and cameras. Julian gave a final statement. 3 years ago, I witnessed an injustice that left me speechless. Today, I'm not speechless anymore. None of us should be. When you see wrong, speak. When you see cruelty, act. When you see children suffering, become the adult they need. He squeezed Lena's hand, a profound love shining in his eyes. My daughter taught me that. She survived. She thrived. She transformed her pain into power. Every child deserves that chance. The cameras captured it all. This would play on every news channel, every social media platform. The story that wouldn't die, because it shouldn't die, because thousands of children still needed rescue, still needed adults who wouldn't look away. Julian and Lena drove away from Blackwood, the school where her nightmare began, where justice prevailed, where hope rebuilt itself from ashes. Lena looked at her father, a thoughtful expression on her face. Dad, do you think we really changed things? Yes, Julian replied, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. But not enough, not yet. Then we keep going, Lena said, a new resolve in her voice. We keep going, Julian affirmed. The car disappeared down the road, towards whatever came next, towards more fights, more victories, more children saved. Because one lunch visit changed everything. One father who refused to stay silent, one daughter who refused to stay invisible, one moment of courage that shattered decades of cruelty. Now it's your turn. Share this story. Let it spark conversations. Let it make people uncomfortable. Let it force examination. Subscribe to Blacktail Stories for more narratives where justice wins, where the powerless gain power, where wrongs are righted. Follow the movement. Join the fight. Be the witness who doesn't look away. Most importantly, answer these questions honestly. Where are the Eleanor Albrights in your community? What segregation exists that everyone pretends not to see? When you witness injustice against a child, what will you do? Will you look away and let it continue? Or will you be the person who changes everything? Your answer matters. Your choice matters. Your courage matters. Because somewhere right now, a child is sitting in a corner eating lunch alone, believing they deserve it. What will you do about it?